everyone. Thank you for joining this new RevLabs session. I'll let you stream into this webinar. There's already 20 of you. So as you know, today we'll be talking about revenue management and marketing and distribution. How do you work together? What can you do? What can you do when working with the marketing teams or marketing campaigns? And how do you think about distributions, the channels? How do you integrate all this in your thinking of, oh, wow, I have to do revenue management and take care of all this? So we will be covering this today. There's almost 50 people. Let's just wait for me right over 50 people. I will get started. As usual, have like 3-4 slides. That's it. And then we go straight into a live conversation with actual people with real life experience. Okay, 50 of us. Let me get started. So let me, again, as I said, with a few slides. It's great to have you. A bit of housekeeping first. We are live right now, but this is recorded. We'll send you the recording by email probably tomorrow. This could be also a takeaway article from this so that you can really be able to implement the advice we're giving you today. We have a comment section. So feel free in the comments to already maybe let us know where you are and how many properties you have, where you are based and how many properties you have. So we can start adapting to you while I'm setting the first slides and I will give you this. Also housekeeping again, we have a Q&A section. So feel free during the session to ask any question in the Q&A section. We have Becca, who's here. Through the social consultant who will be manning, womaning? How do you say this? Personing? I don't know how you say this anymore. That section, again, I will be looking at the Q&A section as we go. So we should have a time at the end, but maybe during the flow of the conversation, I will try to be your voice here as well. So as I said, a few questions. Let me get the slides. And all right, we have South Africa. We have Jordan, wow, Thailand, Brazil, Seattle, Canada, Mexico, KSA, Jordan again, Dubai, Outer Banks. So it's really all over. It's really good because we really try to adapt to this. And let me just launch the slides. If you've ever been with us at any of these shows, you know how I'm always struggling finding the slides. It's really something I get to know, be better at, but I will. All right. So keep on telling us where you're based and how many properties you have. So because the speakers can see that. So as I said, as I promised today, how revenue management interplays with marketing and distribution. As a revenue manager, property manager, you probably have all this in mind. It's not like they are separate silos, right? They work hand in hand. And so how do you make it happen? And with the people behind each of these topics. I'm your host. I'm the head of product marketing at PriceLabs. As I said, we have Becca Madigan. She's a solution consultant. She will be in our comment section. If you have any questions, again, be here or use the comment section for any encouragement you want to give us. If you have actual questions, use the Q&A section. PriceLabs, most of you, I think, are PriceLabs users and customers of ours, sorry, and thank you for that. Thank you if you're trying us out as well. If not, we're happy to welcome you. We have, as you could hear just from people talking here, we serve every market in the world. We're very happy to do that. And as you can also see from the number of properties, we're also quite good, I think, with large property managers. So making sure, again, here, as most of you have a lot of properties, we'll make sure what we're going to be talking today is really applicable to you when you have to scale. You have a lot of properties. How do you do all this at scale, which is really what we want to achieve with this conference. All right. Before I let them choose themselves, I just want to quickly say we have Bryant, Director of Revenue Management Distribution at Brett Robinson. We have Amber Prickett. She's a solution consultant at PriceLabs, but also she talked about her past experience. Subhodeep Mandal, revenue management specialist, who's an independent consultant with also great experience on revenue management. So in this order, maybe Bryant, Amber, and Subhodeep, I'll let you now introduce yourselves. Bryant, we'll get started.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm Bryant Loy. I'm Revenue Management Director at Brett Robinson. We are a large property management company on the Gulf Coast with about 1,700 properties, primarily a condo-based inventory with a couple of hotels as a part of that, individually owned hotels, so more condo hotel type properties. And so my role with the company has been kind of a combination of I've been with the revenue management team since inception. I've worked as head of marketing while we kind of looked for somebody else to run that department, and distribution is a part of the revenue management team's role at Brett Robinson. So I handle the distribution strategy and make sure that's all aligned with what the company thinks is best. So.
Thank you, Bryant. Amber, how about you?
Hi there. I'm Amber, solutions consultant here. I've been here for a little over 2 years now, and before that, I was a revenue manager in the Northwest Florida area for two large property management companies for about 4 years. Helped manage revenue for listings everywhere from Pensacola Beach to Panama City Beach. So really excited to be here and to continue to learn.
All right, thank you, Amber, and thanks again for being here, sharing your experience so we can learn with you. Subhadeep, how about you?
Hi guys. Good morning, afternoon, evening, based on where you are. Yeah, I work as a independent consultant for short-term rentals. I've been doing it for 3-4 years now. I come with a total of 7 years of experience, predominantly with the hotels. Initially, to start my career with, I worked with the Marriott hotels as a revenue management professional. That's where I started started to learn the skill, and gradually transition into a short-term rental professional. Uh, my clientele is majority of it is in the US and the UK. I've worked with more than 90 plus clients with a retention of 90% in the past 4 years. Glad to be a part of this panel and happy to share my thoughts and take key takeaways from this webinar. So yeah, looking forward to a fruitful conversation.
Thank you. And last not least, we have a surprise for you. We have Anurag, who's one of the co-founders of PriceLabs, joining the panel today. Anurag, do you want to introduce yourself if people don't know you?
Yes. Hey, everyone. My name is Anurag, one of the co-founders at PriceLabs. Before PriceLabs, I was doing revenue management at United Airlines. So have some varied experiences from like how a very large company thinks about integrating all of these things versus how a lot of vacation rental companies. I think Bryant is sort of the edge case here in still being a very large company. But hundreds of conversations I've had over the last 9 years on this topic. Happy to bring whatever perspective I can on that front.
And I'm sure we're going to have plenty of things to learn again from you, Anurag. And again, to reiterate, I was looking in the list here, and we have Fatima with 73 properties, Fabio, hey Fabio, with 200 units, Laura in France, 195, 800 from Chieftain Connons, 200 in Dubai, 300 in Canada and KSA Jordan. So quite, again, let's think about this skill as we're doing this. It's very important. And also to introduce as well, you could hear what's interesting as well, that at this scale, usually also we tend to have different business models, right? It could be like some things you are more vacation rental business or more urban, or you have a whole building or sometimes even a hotel license. So that's going to be very interesting here to hear about this, and even also heard from Anurag from the airline industry, right? About working with marketing and distribution has been something the hotels, the airlines have had to do in terms of revenue management for a very long time. So what can we learn here? So without further ado, then we start with the first question, right? So first topic for me would be how do you get all this to work together? I mean, let's imagine we're talking about companies of that size with hundreds of listings. probably it's not one person anymore doing all this, right? We're not at a scale where a reservation manager, sorry, had to do distribution and maybe marketing with some marketing person maybe, and then also had to do revenue management. Usually we have several people in there. So I'm just curious, before we do any strategies, we have to get in maybe sometimes in the same room together. And I'm just curious from each of you, your experience, how do you set it up? When did you realize, for example, that you had to have conversations with marketing distribution? How do you set it up? Maybe on which cadence and which document you have? So how do you do this so people can judge from their own experience what it could be doing? Again, the same orders we did, maybe Bryant, to get started about this. How do you collaborate together across a company?
Yeah, so when I came into the role that I'm in now, I mean, we were a massive company, 1,500, 1,600 units at the time. So it's always been large. So we had to kind of get the revenue management team and the marketing team on the same page. It's always a challenge to make sure those two are on the same page. Sometimes marketing's asking for a discount, revenue management's trying to tell them when that is. So our cadence is, we have a Monday meeting every week that the marketing team and the revenue management team sits down. We kind of go through past results, what we're seeing in future pacing. We kind of talk through with the marketing team. Here's the soft dates that we're seeing that things aren't moving the way we need them to, or here's where things are really killing it right now, so we don't need to push quite as hard on some of those initiatives for certain time periods. So we meet that once a week, but we also have stand-ups throughout the week to kind of get off quick one-hit things here and there that may pop up. We have a big Slack channel that the whole team is connected on, that we're kind of firing off ideas throughout the week and throughout the day, so that everybody's kind of constantly in that stream. And so for our team, that's what we do right now. The revenue management team has separate meetings that we bring in a handful of 2 or 3 key marketing members from separately twice a week as well. So we keep with our marketing team and keep that kind of very, very closely interlocked, because to me, one of the things that has always been really, really important is ensuring that those two teams know what the other one's doing. So I know this industry has kind of grown from a few years ago, where it was two sides not necessarily always talking to each other quite as well. And anybody who's worked in this industry understands that if marketing's saying, hey, we got to push discounts, and revenue management saying, hey, we don't have discounts to give right now, we don't have those rates to do it, the company's not going to end up in a good place. So for us, it's once a week with like a heavy meeting where everybody sits down, we go through, we really brainstorm, and then twice a week with more revenue management focused meetings where the marketing team is there just to make sure that we're following up on that in future conversations.
It's really fascinating, Brian, because I hear a weekly meeting, a daily stand-up. So who would be in this daily stand-up?
It's a bi-weekly stand-up, or twice a week stand-up. So we do Monday stand-up, Friday stand-up. So those are not a daily situation, but we do have a check-in channel on Slack that everybody just kind of makes sure there's nothing this huge popping that the other team hasn't been aware of. So.
And who's in these meetings again precisely?
The whole marketing team. So for our team, it's going to be our chief marketing officer. We've got a social media manager. We have some outside consultants to help us on creatives. We have a content manager. We have reservation supervisor is in there, or I guess the director of reservations is in there. Our OTA team manager is in there. Our social media managers, I think I already said the social media manager, are and then we have a reviews team that they are in there as well. So it's the whole marketing team in there with revenue management on the Monday one. On those shorter meetings, it's mostly the revenue management team with our web guy and chief marketing officer on those ones. And then we have a revenue management consultant we actually use that's in there on the Tuesday meetings. And then on Thursdays, we actually bring in and present to the president of the company, make sure he's kind of abreast of the strategy that we have going on and what the pacing looks like and, what the forecasts are and all that stuff. So it's a fairly significant meeting schedule.
Indeed, very interesting. So that's huge scale. Amber, you worked with two different companies, I think, in the past. And how was the setup there to get marketing, distribution, and revenue management work together?
Yeah, so in a lot of ways, kind of similar to what Bryant was talking about, it sounds like, in terms of how his team manages things. So one company I worked for, we did revenue management, marketing, and distribution all in one. So there were, I think, up to 10 of us by the time the company had really grown. And we each kind of had our own set of listings that we were kind of in charge of, but certainly handling sort of all three roles. And we had weekly team meetings. In addition to that, though, we also had team meetings with leadership once every couple of weeks, depending on the time of year. The other company I worked for, it was just a revenue management team and a marketing team. And I almost met with marketing more than I did the rest of the revenue management team because it was so important for us to work together, to be aligned. If owners had concerns, often the two of us would be meeting with those owners to share different marketing versus revenue management perspectives. And that particular company, we had team meetings, I think, once a week, leadership kind of once a week, but then, like I said, marketing kind of whenever we needed to get together and kind of brainstorm and work together on things. In both of those particular roles, there wasn't sort of a clash of goals, I would say, necessarily. One, because we were doing all three roles in one. And for the other company, we just worked very, very closely with marketing. It kind of always was that way. From it being a smaller company to a larger company, it just kind of grew as these two teams being very close. So yeah, very interested to continue the conversation.
Yes, indeed, because for the moment we're talking about how things are set up, and we'll see like why, what are we trying to solve by doing all this, which is my second question for each of you. What are we solving? What pains are we solving? But still, let's stay on a setup because I'm very curious again from other maybe industries, from hotels to airlines. How do we, which also have to solve for marketing, distribution, revenue management, coordination. How do we do this? Maybe Subhodeep, what have you seen here?
Yeah, so similar to what Bryant and Amber also mentioned, I have a similar setup as well, where the primary channel remains Slack or WhatsApp. There are groups that we have, there are marketing teams that we are connected, and there are weekly meetings that we have. Now, just to lay down the importance of marketing for me, listings performance depends on four pillars. One obviously is the pricing. Second thing is the distribution. Are we dependent on the conventional way of listing a property just on Airbnb, or are we exploring opportunities like Booking.com, Expedia, Verbo, even offline channels during dire need period? Say during winters when Boston is 50% down their RevPAR, are we actually looking into offline channels and listing it on Craigslist, Nestpick, Student.com, those kind of offline channels, so that we are able to leverage those opportunities? So those are the discussions. From a strategy standpoint, we discuss every week to understand how does the pace look like, where do we need to put more stress on, how do we how does the forward looking occupancy and ADRs look like, is there a need to increase our distribution channel? So that is where those are the conversations we have on a weekly basis to understand how do we increase our penetration in the market, increase our visibility in the market. The other point which I mentioned about is visibility. Now, a property can have a very aggressive rate, but if it is in the 20th page, the rate is as good as, it's useless because nobody's seeing your property. Now, is the marketing team doing effective campaign management to understand and see that if the property is up the ranks? Because there are two things which result in a property's performance. One is pricing, one is as I said, the visibility. Is the market, are we having those conversations during our weekly meetings to understand which are the low performing properties? Is pricing an issue, or is marketing and visibility an issue? Do we have ample amount of distribution channels where the property is listed? And yeah, that is where you have those conversations of how do we enhance the performance of a property, right? So yeah, these are weekly conversations that we have. There are daily check-ins that we do on our channels to understand which are the properties that needs attention, which are the properties that are doing great, and take lessons from them, to understand, what's working best for them. Are we doing, A/B testing for each of the properties to understand what's working, what's not? So yeah, this is where, the distribution marketing team and the revenue management team comes together, have those discussions and ensure that, we are leading to the properties performance in the right direction, and we are analyzing what's working, what's not.
Cool. Thank you. Anurag, anything to add on the setup? What you've seen maybe in past or other customers?
Not much. Not much other than one thing. Like a lot of companies in our space start out not as 800 listing companies. They start out as 1, 2, 5, and then they steadily grow, right? So I saw the poll results came out and said 34% of the folks are a one-person show, which is kind of what Amber was also referring to. And the contrast between Amber's and Bryant's models is something worth diving into. This is not just vacation rentals, though. Like in every industry, we see this, not just travel, like every industry where you try to say, okay, should we have different functions be different departments, or have the same people take on multiple hats and then distribute horizontally? There are benefits, pros and cons to both. I think at PriceLabs, we go through this very different topic in some ways, but we don't have a traditional sales team and then onboarding team and an account management team. This is how a lot of companies do their setup, right? Where they say, okay, sales, once you sign the contract, they don't have anything to do with you. There's an onboarding team. Once you're onboarded, you go into account management. We do it as like solution consultants, which Amber and Becca are in that role where they are working with the same PMs all through their life cycle, which is kind of a parallel that I'm drawing here, very unrelated to travel industry, but love to hear more about what works better. There are pros and cons to each one of these models.
Great question. Who wants to say about this? Amber, Bryant, or somebody about this? Pros and
I
cons.
can I can start off here, as Anurag mentioned, that when you're starting off as a new company, you do not have multiple teams. There is a single guy who needs to wear multiple hats, and that's where revenue management and distribution comes in. As a single team more often than not, because you can manage things. I mean, you can do pricing, but alongside you can also start listing the property, do the campaign management. Devise your strategy, how you want to leverage, which channels do you want to leverage. So distribution and revenue management comes as a single unit more often than not, and then with a bit of marketing experience, it is a cherry on the cake, where you can just be a single guy doing all of the things at the same time. But yeah, long story short, and to answer the question, I think revenue management and distribution comes hand in hand, while marketing requires some bit of prior experience. But yeah, that eventually comes over time once you try and test multiple things. That eventually comes.
Anyone else on this one?
Yeah, and in regards to Fabio's question here, this is an interesting one that we've kind of battled back and forth, and we've kind of gone both directions with this. We do use marketing agencies for various pieces. We've in the past used we had a social media company.
Bryant,
I'm sorry. Should I read it?
Exactly, please. Thanks.
Okay, so the question is, how does the panel feel about marketing agencies, and should those agencies be local to your market or markets? And are there key offerings that you'd see as most valuable, for example, social management? And from our side, again, just to quickly touch base on this is, again, this could be a whole conversation that we could do another class on probably, but from our side, we've experimented with both, and I will tell you from a social media perspective, we have done a local in-house external team that used to handle all of our social media when we didn't have internal people that could handle that type of role. So we've had to do that in the past. what I found is that something that hyper localized is actually works really well with somebody who's in your community, who understands the events that are going to be going on, because social media is such an interesting piece in general that, you know, it's not just about the sales perspective. It's growing a community following, it's growing a base in addition to what you're doing to try to sell stuff. But then on the other side, we've also hired for help with writing our listing descriptions. We've done that with a national type person, where we got help with somebody who helped build some of those descriptions based on some conversations they would have with our team, kind of what tone we were going for, to help kind of build something that's going to do a handful of things. It's going to optimize SEO. It's going to help with showing up in better search results, but you're also trying to get something that when you're listening to the website, or when you're listening to a third-party distribution site like an Expedia or a Vrbo or an Airbnb, that you have something that's going to look good for the person there. And so you also have to have a good headline. And so we've done it both ways. You know, we're agnostic. We're going to handle it based on the situation. There's times where a local person's going to work better. There's times where a national brand's going to work better, and there's times where a combination of the two are going to work well. But you know, the truth is, this is evolving just like anything else in our industry. If you find somebody that can help do it, that works well for you, you should go whichever direction you need to. If you can find that person to be internal and you have the budget for it, do it. If you can't, and you have to go that other direction, find the best person for it, handle them on that contract for what you need to, and make sure you get it taken care of. But we've worked with both directions. We actually also have a revenue management consultant in addition to our revenue management full-time team that, you know, we kind of call her the North Star. She kind of keeps us in balance when we feel like we're so in the weeds and doing this stuff on a day-to-day basis on an inventory that's our size. You can get lost sometimes and have to take a step back. And it's helpful to have that person kind of step back and say, hey, hold on, you guys are missing this, or something like that. So,
and if I can, then in this case, let's go about examples of what we're trying to solve for here, right? So you said, oh, sometimes you get lost, you need this thing. So so what's the benefit of doing all this? What are the pains you're trying to solve by having this coordination, for example, with real life examples of things, either pains you had or things you think would not be happening if you were not having this whole setup and this even external people joining in?
is that specific to the revenue management consulting, or is this just kind of overall general?
Oh, no, I'm just talking about the whole, like, what the benefit of coordinating marketing, distribution, and revenue management.
Okay.
Why are we doing this? And like real life examples of, like, you know, maybe at some point you were doing something, and by having these meetings, this got solved, or what is it? How is it helping you basically in your daily job, or helping your team and your company?
Do you want me to start, or you want to let one of the
Go
others?
ahead. You start.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, how that helps from our side is, you know, with us, I should probably let everybody know, we do about 85% of our bookings direct through our website or through our call center. So we are a very direct based company. So as you can imagine, that means we have a significant amount of paid spend. We spend a lot of time on SEO optimization and all that stuff, but web, just making sure our website works well. And so from our side, what we can get lost with sometimes is in making something so optimized for, okay, the website has to be built this way and do it this way, and we lose track of the fact that, hey, we're pacing a little bit slow for this season. We can use Memorial Day as an example. If you're looking at Memorial Day and you see you're 4 weeks out and you're not at the pace you need to, the revenue management team is the one that needs to tell the marketing team, hey, it's time to start hitting that on social. It's time to start hitting it. We need to maybe run an offer out there and try to hit that. We need to drop some minimums on our side, maybe if we have a minimum length of stay, or maybe we have different things that we can update on our side. But you also need to drive as many people as you can to the website looking at the days that you need to fill in. And so we can do that with coordinated marketing messaging to make sure that you're pushing people over there for the periods that you need the people looking at. And so even if it's just not even an offer, even if it's just takes it into a landing page where their defaulted dates are the Thursday through the Monday or whatever it ends up being, that kind of thing can have a pretty big impact if you have the team working together and coordinating and making sure that stuff is looked at. I mean, because otherwise, you know, how would marketing know that they need to run a Memorial Day message 4 weeks out when they're assuming you've already sold that out? So it's important that we communicate on that.
Thanks,
I'll
they're really
just-
good examples. Amber, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add to that a little bit. So, I mean, in terms of coordinating the three efforts, I'll say, is that it, you know, as we all know here, it takes all three to be successful. I've heard others talk on this topic a little bit, and I found it really interesting when it was a person who specialized in distribution, a person that specialized in marketing. She was with a marketing agency, and then revenue management experience there, and talking about how the distribution in particular, that they believe that direct booking should be anywhere from 40% to 90%. And marketing is really going to aim for that 100% direct bookings. And revenue is like, hey, we just want to make money and we don't want to lose a lot of that money to those OTA fees. So I think that it's really interesting and important to coordinate the three efforts, because there's an important perspective from all three perspectives. It was actually flooring to me that there were companies out there that had someone that just specialized in distribution. And another thing I'll say just about in terms of outside agency, from my experience, when it comes to your direct booking website, SEO, ad spend, that takes expertise. That takes someone not right out of college and learn. I mean, you can do that and they can learn as they go, but I personally think it's really worth the investment to get an expert to help your direct booking website be really strong.
So I'll just come back to you in an instant. So do you mean that if we don't coordinate this, in the end, it's really, we could have great revenues, great marketing, great distribution, but profitability, sorry, could get hit here, right? Because we are just spending a lot of money to do all this, and in the end, it's not profitable, right? That's what you meant by how this should be coordinated?
Yeah, I think that there are different strategies and different opinions on how much distribution to OTAs should play in your revenue. And I've worked for two different companies that had very different perspectives on that. I had one, you know, the company that I worked for initially, they had at least 70%, maybe 75% direct bookings, which, and this was, you know, 6 years ago. And then the other company, their goal was 30% direct bookings. So very, very sort of different approaches. I would say one was more volume focused, one was more quality focused in a lot of ways. It was luxury versus more volume focused. So I think that there can be different strategies. And I do think that meeting in the middle, if there are three roles there, meeting in the middle, you know, like just agreeing that, hey, 90% direct bookings would be fantastic. Versus trying to get over 90. I think and I'm not the expert, but I think what he was saying is that if you have more than 90% direct bookings, you're missing out on potentially a wider audience. And that wider audience, while repeat guests are fantastic, a non-repeat guest might be willing to pay a higher ADR than that repeat guest, because they're like, hey, I stayed here before and I should get it for this price. Whereas you could get someone from an OTA that might be willing to pay more. So I think there are a couple different strategies. Actually, Bryant, I would love to hear your perspective on this. Yeah, because I feel like the two companies I work for are just very different.
Yeah, I actually think this is another awesome topic, because where we're at is, I actually prefer we were about 20 to 25% on the OTAs, because that does mean that you are really optimized on those at a better way than if you're relying on 90+% or 85+% to come to your website and do it. Plus, I mean, again, this is all kind of tugging from different budgets, right? And so, you know, if one budget is that we've got to compete with Vacasa and we've got to compete with Verbo for spend in our market, that all of a sudden is obviously driving up a digital marketing number to astronomical levels. And so, if we could get to a point where, you know, we could optimize, and this is really cool to think about. If you find the booking windows that best work for Vrbo and Airbnb and some of those distribution channels, and you're at the sweet spot on your price to where you're really maximizing and getting those things sold out there. Again, and we all have the opportunity probably through our systems at this point. You can sell a different rate on Vrbo. You can sell a different rate on Airbnb than what you're selling internally if you need to cover some of those costs, or you can share some of those costs if you need to. We don't share the costs. We eat all the costs from the OTA distribution ourselves. But you know, there's all these different options for it. And so, you know, we bounce back and forth. Our most fantastic years, it's typically 20%-ish that is going to be on the OTAs. The years that we struggle a little bit more is when we start getting over 90% internally, because it's just, you got to keep spending to get those people to the website to get them to book, and it becomes really, really, really expensive to do that.
Subhodeep, again, when you thanks, Ryan. Subhodeep, when you hear this again, what are we trying to solve for when we want to coordinate all this? Or if it didn't happen, what could be happening that could be terrible, let's say, for the company?
I think it is also important for us to understand that, you know, being a revenue management professional, you have all the data to your disposal. You're able to see what the market is trending at, how things look at, and those communication needs to go to each of the departments and the, you know, all the head of the departments to understand where the focus needs to be at. What the strategy is, where are we focusing in the right direction? Because at times, with not all the information available to each, for example, a marketing team not having the information, you know, where to focus on, the focus could be haywire, and it may not be targeted to where the need is. A classic example being, for example, there is an event in UK, and you see a lot of clientele coming in from the US. Now, we need to answer that to see, you know, which channels do we target. You know, Expedia works really well in the US. Now, are we optimizing that specific period on that channel to ensure that, you know, we are leveraging the visibility there, and, you know, able to maximize from that specific channel? So while we want to maximize across all fronts and get our website share higher, but that is not always true unless you are a very big company and you have you know, a brand recognition that only comes over a period of time. Once you only have 400, 500, 300 and above listings, that's when you can leverage your brand side. It does not necessarily happen if you have only 20 listings. Your brand contribution is significantly lower, and it keeps on growing over a period of time. So that's where you need to target each and every OT and understand when to focus where. You know, which country to focus. For example, if there's a Chinese New Year, you know, and you are in Thailand, how do you focus your Chinese clientele from which channels? So those are the things that you need to focus on. And yeah, just to, you know, understand how the market is behaving and what decisions do you take to overcome that. So those are the things. So it is a collective you know, collaboration between each of the three teams to understand, you know, where the focus needs to be at. And that typically is headed by, you know, if you have the market intent, you look into those data and then, you know, cascade those informations to the team to understand where the focus needs to be at.
Thanks a lot. Anurag, any view on this? Again, what are we trying to solve for by having this alignment within these teams on those topics?
Yeah, I think Bryant mentioned the main one, which is better revenue. I think Amber also mentioned that if Memorial Day is not booking up as we expected, can marketing do something to get more eyes on that weekend, right? The second thing I would say from a coordination perspective that might get solved is a lot of times revenue managers want to solve every problem themselves. So in this example, Memorial Day is not booking as much as you expect. There can be so many reasons for it, right? The obvious reason to think of is like, okay, occupancy is down. Have we been listing at prices that are way higher than past years, right? So like, if that's the case, that's sort of, okay, revenue manager looks at it, ADRs are up, occupancy is down, I know what's happening. you look at like, is RevPAR up? Is RevPAR is up? Maybe it's not such a bad thing. If RevPAR is also down, maybe you want to do something. But you look at ADRs and they're also down. Now you're thinking, okay, is it my minimum stay that needs to be like, maybe I'm going with like minimum stays that are too high. And then you look at that and maybe nothing shows up there. And then you can go down this rabbit hole to say, okay, what am I doing wrong that is resulting in this? Without realizing that maybe it's not you doing something wrong, it's something off in distribution, or it's something that the entire market is experiencing. You can, of course, look at market data to see, is the market experiencing the same thing or not? But you hop on into this meeting and potentially somebody else has an outside perspective from things that you don't look at every day, that tells you, hey, look, you don't need to spend 4 days analyzing this. Like, we kind of know what might be happening. So that itself is helpful. Again, all of this hopefully then helps you figure out what can be done about it and then improve revenues. But essentially, it's trying to get to the answer faster. And every coordination is about that at the end.
Yeah, so going on that thought, right? For example, Verbo has gone into transition when they went from their original platform to a new platform under the Expedia group, and that platform has been converting, well, was converting, let's say, a bit less, and they even had to stop paid marketing to stop driving traffic because that was not converting. And some markets in the US, it's been pretty marked that the lower, like less booking. So let's imagine I'm looking at my revenues here and I see, oh, for some reason my bigger properties, the ones I usually do really well on Verbo, my bigger properties are not booking. So I'm guessing that if I didn't know what was happening on Verbo, that maybe my distribution manager is not telling me, hey, Verbo is doing this, that's what's happening, they stop, that's why. So I could be heavily discounting my properties, say that's the properties, and not know actually it's the channel that's not going well, right? That's if I get right on right. That's something I would not be able to see if we were not talking together, for example.
Yeah, and this is not just marketing, distribution, and revenue management coordinating. This is also at some level the leadership coordinating, right? Because I got to know about the reduction in Verbo's performance at VRMA during the key data keynote thingy. Also got to know that Booking.com is bumping up. Now I don't know if there were a lot of companies at the conference, but were all the revenue managers there? Maybe not. So whoever was there needs to go back and relay this information, whether it's on Slack, whether it's in a meeting, however it is, text it right away as you find it. But yeah, all of this helps the revenue managers figure out, okay, what might be causing what I'm seeing in the data.
And can I reverse the question for each of you, right? Because we just had a question about who should be in the driver's seat for all this. And for some reasons, people watching this webinar are saying the revenue manager should be in the driver's seat. It's maybe self-fulfilling, right? But leadership was also there in who should be driving this. Let me put it differently. Let's imagine I want to drive, let's say, new properties. I got new properties in. I know they're not going to perform right. So how do I, for example, plan with marketing distribution a launch campaign, right? That'd be something I guess that should be coordinated. So who maybe just from that one case want to take this one? How do you think through launching new properties? How do I coordinate that with my different or my team maybe, or my counterparts? Who could take this one among the speakers here?
I can take it, I guess. So yeah, I mean, as a new property comes on, obviously, well, there's a process when you're bringing something on. You got to get the prices put in, you got to get pictures taken, you got to get all of your distribution channels set up. You got to make sure you got a good description, good headline, all that fun stuff. We don't run, new units on the program campaigns often. What we do on our side typically. So again, this is going to step back into the marketing side of thing. We use a company called Adaptive. They are an AI-based platform to help feature certain properties on your website based on a user's preferences, what they've seen that person browsing, or based on their demographics, or a combination of those things. What you can do as new properties come on is you can put them on a boost for a couple months to make sure they're showing up higher in the recommended list there. On our site, we don't have like a featured property section that's just for new units. As we're talking through it, I'm like, maybe we should. But you know, we don't do that specifically. We will sometimes have our team will have our social person go do a quick walkthrough of the property, plug it out on the website and things like that, plug it on our social pages. So, you know, I'd be interested to hear other perspectives on this, you know, because this is something I think that everybody could probably learn from each other on, see what's working well for other people to get those initial bookings. But to your point, those typically book best on the OTAs to start off with. They don't book quite as well as they do on your website, or they don't do quite as well on your website as they do on those OTAs once you initially plug them out. At least from our perspective, it doesn't typically.
To answer, please, Anurag, go ahead.
So my question to Bryant, actually, like I know on OTAs the new properties struggle because there is a little bit of trust factor. Everybody wants to see reviews before they book something. My guess on the direct booking website is that that's not as big of a problem because the potential guest already has trust built into your company because that's why they're on your website, right? So do new properties still struggle in this case?
It's not struggle. It's just we see a higher percentage of OTA bookings as they initially come onto our platform. So like as we put something out there, for whatever reason, as it goes out there, it seems to almost always get, you know, 25-30% of it booked. You know, granted, that's still not a high percentage, which is what a lot of people see, but we still see about 25-30% of like the first 10 or so reservations are coming through. And you know, I don't know how the search algorithms built on those companies. You know, on our site, we are able to push things a little bit higher up with some adjustments that we make to the search order sometimes to get them up there. And that's a recent adjustment on our side that we hope can maybe reverse this trend a little bit, because it's not that we mind booking on the OTAs. It's just that on our side, we want to make sure, because, you know, again, you've got to get pictures uploaded and all that stuff. And so it may just be that as those things are going up on the OTAs, since we've just got complex level photos, as you know, this is a 3-bedroom at this place, we know how many it sleeps, we got a picture of the pool, we got a picture of the building, we got a picture of, you know, the outside amenities and things like that. But those people see pictures coming soon, they're like, oh, I know that building from the other 30 listings that I see out here on Vrbo. You know, I'm going to go ahead and make this booking, go ahead and take it, and maybe I'm getting a hidden gem or something. I don't know if it's a mysterious aura behind it that does it or what it is, but we are trying to get it to where they show up and book really, really well on our website too. I mean, we always have, we do internally what's called a focus list that we take. We've built this list of basically key things that we do to sort, you know, most at-risk properties to the properties that are doing okay. And so our call center gets those. We put them on hot units and hot deals on our website and places like that. But we also are trying pretty hard to make sure that, you know, everything that we list is going to show up on our website in a way that is going to be at the top of the search results, whatever else. But you can't do that to everybody, because everybody who's been on your program is going to be pissed if you're doing that too. So, you know, it's a delicate balance that we run with there. And, you know, that focus list does help, because the new units get plugged on that as soon as they come on. The call center's got a list of those, you know, 15 properties that have come on in the last 2 months or whatever, and they start looking through them. But you know, I don't know if it's a search algorithm stuff that works on Vrbo, Airbnb, that's helping them show up higher, or I would think it would go lower, like you're saying, because it's you know, no reviews or very low reviews. So
I just have a very quick comment. I know we've got to move on, but just a really quick comment. Something that I've seen, yes, maybe some guests on the OTAs wouldn't want to stay somewhere that doesn't have reviews. There are guests that would love to be the first guest in a property. So there is that elusive factor. One of the strategies we used to take for the first 90 days is in the title, and the OTAs very much called out the fact that it was a new property, new to program. sometimes it's all about how you position it. And yes, if one of their search factors maybe has to do with number of reviews, they won't see it. But I do think there are some people out there that want to be like some of the first guests in a new property. So
Yeah, true. And as Sabrina also is mentioning, indeed, as the platforms, the OTAs tend to give a boost. For example, I think on Airbnb, so you have a 2-week window when you list, and as well, not to mention, but Airbnb usually tells you and uh, put a 20% discount on whatever base price should be until you get 3 stays at your property, right? So they also have this like boost algorithm and discount. So I never know which one is actually effective, is it the boost or the fact that they actually ask you to lower your prices? Who knows? Indeed, moving on to this one, I will start with Subhodeep for this one. So we have to share things. We have to talk the same language. Sometimes it's actually about sharing data, right? To make sure we are talking about the same data. It's like 3 KPIs or key metrics that you think need to be shared among distribution, marketing and revenue management team, so everybody speaks the same language or understand what's happening while we're doing things. What 3 KPIs would you pick? Same question.
Yeah, I would ideally, look into how the market is trending, say, in terms of RevPAR, in terms of ADR, and in terms of occupancy. The standard hotelier, revenue management KPIs. First thing is to understand how is the market shaping up. Is, by how much percentage is the market growing in terms of RevPAR, and are we growing in similar pace, or are we, lagging behind? If you're lagging behind, that's when we need to look back and see which parameter are we behind. Is it in terms of ADR? Is it in terms of occupancy? And then so it's always a top to bottom approach. You first analyze where the issue is coming in from, if there is an issue or not. If the issue is there, where is it coming from? Is it because of our ADRs are dropping? Now that's where we can have those conversations in the background. What can we do to uplift the ADRs? Can we upgrade in terms of amenities? Can we upgrade in terms of some upsell programs to ensure that we are able to give them higher value for money, but at the same time uplift our ADRs by doing so. So yeah, those are the conversations. But when you talk about KPI and when you talk about performance, I would always gauge my performance and benchmark my performance based on how the market is evolved and how the market is growing, and then take it forward from there.
Thank you. That's so once again, hearing from the hotelier side is really bringing some light again what you could be doing. And Amber, if you had to pick 3 KPIs that you need to share with this among the 3 teams, what would you pick?
always going to say occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR. Those are my favorite metrics. RevPAR, for anyone on here, I've seen that many of you have many properties and listings. But if there's anyone on here that doesn't know what RevPAR is, that's revenue per available room, comes from the hotel industry. In some systems, it's called RevPAN, I think, revenue per available night. Essentially, it's a way to balance ADR and occupancy, right? So it's essentially mathematically ADR times occupancy. So you might be really high on ADR, but low on occupancy, or really high on occupancy and low on ADR. And those are not necessarily exclusively good or bad things. So when looking at RevPAR, you really get the balance of all of it. So, and I think in terms of keeping distribution in mind, having an element that shows those broken down per channel would be ideal.
Thanks, Amber. Bryant, what would you pick?
Man, I gotta be the contrarian here because we actually don't look at RevPAR that heavily just because our inventory is so spread across what we're doing that it's hard for us to gather a whole lot from RevPAR in the way that some other people can. Now we don't ignore RevPAR; it's a part of what we look at. But in terms of collaborating between the teams here, like the important things that we do is we're going to share overall revenue pacing for certain months and make sure that we're on track. But a lot of what we're looking at is revenue per unit, revenue per for certain months or for the overall. We're looking at occupancy and ADR because it is important. We have to break it down into the various accommodations, this building, this bedroom size, and things like that. But in terms of what we can actually like work with those teams on, that's a little different. I mean, what we're looking at on that is where are the searches coming in on our website right now? Are we seeing people look for Memorial Day? Are we seeing people look for June 15th? Are we looking at people arriving on Saturdays, on Thursdays, on Fridays? What are those things telling us about the demand patterns so that we can make sure we have the right pricing in place to maximize the revenue during those time periods? So if we see there's a spike and everybody's looking for Thursday 4-night stays, we know that we have the ability to adjust 4-night stays on Thursdays to maximize revenue, and then we can drop some stuff around it to get lower prices on the nights around it. So, the searches, the conversion trends are really, really important about what we're looking at with our marketing team. That's a huge part of what makes it so that we can kind of find the demand signal that's telling us where we can make different pricing adjustments to make the money. So we use Google Analytics to pull all that information in. GA4 allows us to kind of get that information into our system. We used to use Adobe Analytics when Universal was GA, but that's one of our big things. Web traffic is another one. If we see our web traffic is substantially down versus where it was at the same point last year, and our bookings are down, that's a good indicator for us that either we've got some weird situation going on with the way our spend is going or being distributed, or we're not getting things into the right people to click over to our website. Our team is going to look at where people are booking from. So if we see that people who book from Louisiana have a different booking trend than people who book from Illinois, we're going to advertise them at different times. So those are all pieces that we are kind of identifying on our side to make sure that we, find those key markets, find where they're booking, and make sure you've got the right pricing strategy for those people arriving on certain dates to maximize your revenue. Because ultimately, if you're out there with a 7-night Saturday to Saturday minimum for your entire summer, but nobody's looking for 7 nights, you can have the lowest prices in the world. If you can stay 4 nights, you can stay 4 nights. And so it doesn't really make a difference if that's the case. So we look at a lot of that stuff and just kind of work through it together to make sure we have the right strategy in place.
Thanks, Brian. Anurag, how about you? What would be 3 KPIs or 3 sources of data you would be looking at?
So as a revenue manager, generally speaking, internally, you look at RevPAR, occupancy, ADR. But for this coordination kind of a thing, you do want to bring out the things that Bryant mentioned. And Bryant mentioned a lot of these from the perspective where you have a lot of direct booking. So you're able to see when your own website is driving so much traffic, you're able to get so much data out of it, right? Like you have full control. But for a lot of PMs, that's not the case. Like you get a lot of bookings from OTAs, and I think at least Airbnb has started. It's been more than a year, I think, but they have an analytics dashboard where they show what kind of views are your properties getting on different dates? What kind of conversion rate are you seeing on different dates, and those kinds of things, right? Which even if you don't have a lot of direct traffic, at least you're able to see what's happening on the sales channels directly in some ways. So yeah, like all of that is important to review as well to see what's happening in your portfolio.
Thanks. And I think there's a question from Sabrina, and she's, so there's another type of, quickly on this one, other type of coordination happening here is like, what type of reporting do you then share with the clients? So I'm guessing there's another coordination happening. Maybe that's probably a great topic for another session, which is owner relations and what you do as a revenue manager here. But quickly, just what kind of, and who wants to take this one as a revenue manager? What kind of reporting you share with clients, or do you get shared by your sales team, account management team, for example? Anybody wants to take that one?
Typically, it's a short conversation to analyze the performance, looking at how we are growing month on month. How is the transition of the property been over a period of time, and how is it fared against the market? For example, if it's in a Boston market, how has the Boston market grown over last year, month on month, and how has our listing grown? And that gives you a benchmarking that, are you able to beat the market? Because that is what is important. You need to understand and benchmark and see if your property performance is better or is it below par than the market standard. So that's typically what I would, share to understand and make them aware of what the market scenarios are, and are we in this right trend or not? Because at times what happens is there are quite a few markets in the US where we see the RevPARs dropping versus last year, and that could be very intimidating for a client to see the revenues going down year on year. Now on those scenarios, it is important for them to understand that there's a supply increase, the demand is not going that much, the market overall is dropping. So are we able to beat the market performance? And that is what is more important. So yeah.
Cool. Still almost 60 of us. We're right on time. I want to make sure maybe you have one last thought for each of you, sorry. And what's the best way to get a hold of you if people want to reach out, know more? Maybe Brian, if people want to, Brian, people reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a LinkedIn page. You can add me on LinkedIn, and that's probably the easiest way. I would say I'd give you my email, but with my inbox, it just would get lost. So it's just send me a LinkedIn request and we can talk through there.
Brian Loy on LinkedIn. Perfect. Thanks a lot. Amber, how about you?
Yeah, same with me. LinkedIn is probably going to be best just to have an initial conversation. If you're interested in learning more about PriceLabs, I can then give you my direct email on PriceLabs. But if you want to just chat about revenue management stuff, yeah, LinkedIn is gonna be best for me as well. In terms of my personal closing remarks, I just want to say thanks so much. I love being able to participate in this, talk about some past experience, and again, learn from others in the industry. So really, really walking away learning a lot today.
Thanks. Subhodeep, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn again, LinkedIn emails. I'm there on Upwork. I'm there one of the top rated professionals there. So maybe either of the network works just fine. Happy to have a conversation, and yeah, glad to be a part of this panel today.
Thank you. Anurag, how about you? If you want to reach out, know more about talk with you or PriceLabs.
Yeah, my email is my first name, Anurag @pricelabs.co. LinkedIn also works. I just sometimes forget to check LinkedIn. So if I don't reply, do send an email.
Cool. All right. Thank you all for attending today. Thank you for your time, for being here. And a quick word, we're supposed to have Rick Jennigan with us today. He had a personal, I was going to say tragedy, but very something big happened to his family. So our thoughts are with him. And on that, again, wish you good end of day. With RevLabs, it's a series we have for large property managers. As you see, we try to talk about how to do things. There's not one way to do things, so having variety of experience is great. We saw this in the polls as well. Thank you for Vika for the polls. Without you guys sharing your experience here live or in the comment section, it's not the same thing. We get a really good pulse of the industry and how different we all are and how we're trying to help each other here. Once again, see you next month for another RevLabs session. Take care, everyone.